pastor's kid. Yeah.
Pastor's kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one trial is probably last year when I pulled like 2 all-nighters straight back to back, and I was trying to get like studying for my test and get papers done. And our trial this year was my doctrinal paper, and it did provide endurance.
How did you feel during that time?
I felt stressed.
Stress?
I felt like I didn't want to do work anymore.
Did you feel defeated? Did you feel like giving up?
I felt like giving up, yeah. But I knew that my grade was on the line. My graduation was on the line.
And then that's what drove you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to continue with that. What happened at the end of that?
I was happy because the burden was lifted off my shoulders.
Okay, and you felt better, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened even after that?
I procrastinated again.
It's not producing their kids.
All right, yeah. Oh, I get you procrastinated again, but in a different set.
Yeah.
Right?
Diamonds are made under pressure.
Anybody else? So if we look at Daniel's example, right? He had his doctrinal paper due, which is a big paper that all the pastoral ministry majors students have to do. And we write this paper, and it's very stressful. It's about what we believe, and so it's a very hard paper because up until senior level, we're formulating what we believe and learning, but when we have to put it on paper, it's a different story. So Daniel was writing that paper, and he's very stressed. And what motivated him was because his grade was on the line. But at the end of that, he felt better, right? When he submitted that paper, he felt better. But even after that, he continued to procrastinate again, which is not a good thing. But you see, the endurance, the thing is, Daniel was able to move on. It wasn't like it hit him and then he was done. He was able to move on to procrastinate another day. Daniel was able to move on to procrastinate another day. But no, let's not encourage Daniel to procrastinate another day, but let's look at Daniel being able to move on. And that's what James is telling us here, is that when we encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of our faith produces endurance, this trial and the context is not that they feel bad, it's not that they feel lonely, it's not that in the context is, there's some persecution going on, something's happening to the church as I gave you the context, there's persecution happening. The church was being persecuted. But James encourages the church and reminds them, when you encounter these various trials, many different kinds of trials, whether it's a Roman soldier, hurting them, whether they got in 39 whips, whatever it was, when these trials come, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect results, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And we see here that he said, let endurance have its perfect result. And what does that mean?
I'll just add to this equation.
What does letting endurance have its perfect result equal?
God's will.
Was it
God's will.
God's will?
The reflection of God,
What's
your
that?
faith.
Our faith?
Reflection of your faith.
Reflection of our faith. Those are two very good ones.
Perseverance. Perseverance.
Persevere. Right?
Yeah.
Perseverance, endurance. Yes, almost. A little more on that one. I was sorry, I'm sorry. But so here it is. Yes, God's will, right, and also your faith. You get to endure in your faith. Yes, and this comes by way of experiencing these trials. But, endurance plus perfect result in the endurance, the way that I see it, the way that I feel like Scripture is saying is, yes, we get to see our faith, we get to see God's will, but also we get to become more like Christ. Right? Because if the end result is us being a better person, if the end result is us, feeling better, all that could fade away very quickly. And we don't ever get to experience what truly fulfills us, and that is Christ. And James continues, and he said, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God to give to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. For you must ask in faith without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being an open-minded man, unstable in all his ways. And James is saying that, if you lack wisdom, then ask from the Lord and trust that He'll give it to you. I think that when we're in trials, when we're in that stormy season of life, and the waves are going and the waves are crashing, and we're that little boat on the waves, we forget. We just see the next wave coming. We just see the next wave coming and crashing. And we don't, we ask, hey, help, but all we see is the next wave. But, and because we only see the next wave, our faith in believing and trusting that, after that big wave, there's the ray of sunshine. We forget that. We don't see that. And that's why James is reminding us that, and let endurance have its perfect result. And that's not that let the storm blow by and we idly sit and wait in the boat and cower. No, it's, this endurance is being produced in our faith. And as we're going through the storm, as the season seems to just be very hard on us, as our discouragement is just very heavy on us, remember that our endurance for our faith is being perfected. And that's not because we are getting over the storm or because we're just going to move out of this season, but it's because at the end of it, we become to look more like Christ. And we have to remember, because it's very easy to just go through the motions every day. But if we continue to be intentional and in these trials, remember that our faith is being produced for the perfect. If we remember that our endurance is being perfected in these trials, and we will remember that at the end, we will begin to look more like Christ through these trials. As these trials impact us and shape us and mold us, though it's very hard, at the end it starts to nibble off a little bit of the scales that are on us so that Christ will be more and more revealed. So I just want to ask you guys, to reflect on your life, to maybe share with somebody to your right or your left, or let's make a group of 3, and in that group, just share with somebody, with the 2 people you're with, some trials in your life. It doesn't have to be personal. Be as personal as you want to be, but some trials in your life where you've seen God at the end of that trial. How you were in that trial, and then how you were after that trial, and where God was in the midst of each part. Then you do that, and then we come back together, and then just remember this: trials produce endurance, and endurance has its perfect result, and that would mean that we look more like Christ in the end. HSA's big. This is one of HSA's big themes this year. It's not that we have 4 big themes, but under the book that we're going through, this is just one of the things that he mentioned. God says, "I can," and that is just speaking towards discouragement. And in this life, we have many discouragements. But remember that through each one, through each trial, through each test, our endurance is being perfected. Because it's being perfected, at the end we become to look more like Christ. How long that?
That's almost 24 minutes. And that's not
That's
even,
perfect.
well, no, because you didn't break up and talk and
Yeah,
really play your game much, so, I mean, that's stuff you have to watch.
so
Yeah,
shorter.
I'd say,
I like the discussion, but I think the game.
The game.
uh,
That's a break.
It might take.
And maybe
the
you can only
discussion,
pick
yeah.
5 people,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know how big the small groups are when you do it.
Yeah, and, yeah, I think, yeah, 24, yeah, discussion will push it. Discussion will really push it, because they're really like sharing their hearts.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
We're getting 30 minutes now, right?
Yep, 30 minutes.
Max?
Yep.
And also like,
Okay.
Uh,
24, 25.
No, 30, I'd say like 35 max. 35
Okay,
max,
so 30 like-
30 is like, hit 25 to 30, hit around there. Yeah.
Okay.
So above 25, below 30 probably, that's their goal.
Okay, so yeah, with each game, with each, well, not each game, with like the icebreaker, I'm thinking like
pick
5,
a group of
maybe
people.
10. Yeah. Then,
Should be like your sample.
Yeah.
don't forget, like, small group, they're doing discussions too, so
Yeah.
if you wanna,
Yeah.
if you ever wanna
teach.
game or
Yeah.
do content, by all means, go ahead,
Yeah, I think, that's the thing, I'm still thinking about like, if I want to be like more interactive, but I just don't want to be like the one talking for 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, it's good because it keeps us like on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you have to balance that. I think you're balancing well, but the coming together discussion, I don't think we need that.
Okay.
Like, it just takes so much time up. I think that's what. it does,
Again,
yeah.
know your audience. I mean, I don't know, I mean, me as a high schooler, I would never have said anything, so I don't know if they would actually discuss and share and,
Yeah.
but to go back to your sermon too, trials, I'm trying to think, did I have any trials in high school? I mean, Ted didn't want to go out with me or this or that. It's not a testing of my faith. So I think you need to come up with something that you can, grandma has cancer and, she suffered a lot. But I always saw her reading the Bible. I always saw her praising God in the middle of all those sufferings. And at the end, you can see how her faith got stronger. Because I don't think the high schoolers are going to be able to relate to a trial. Procrastination to me is not a trial. It's your
Your choice of
Your choice.
work ethic. Your
and
choice of work ethic.
and when you came out of that, did that test your faith at all? Yeah. So I think you have to have examples so these kids can understand it and go, oh yeah, I can relate to that.
Okay. Yeah. One story.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because
like.
then you can put every aspect into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, yeah.
kind of like an application,
Yeah.
education kind of thing.
And you only threw, I don't know if I heard it right, but I only saw discouragement coming at the end.
The what?
Like, I only saw discouragement coming at the end.
It's good. Yeah, I think I should have addressed that earlier. I got caught up in like this and this, but I didn't even address this part. 'Cause I think where I messed up with that was I addressed it earlier, so I just kind of left it. Yeah. Like at the beginning, I just said, this is what we talked about, and I just went into it. Yeah. But yeah, I think I need to address and touch back more with that.
Yeah. Because definitely everybody gets discouraged during trials, so.
Mhm.
And then, one more thing. When you were reading off your notes, you always turn to that way.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
like
that's
that.
good.
Yeah, your back is always like towards us when you're like reading your notes. Yeah. And I don't know if there's gonna be a podium there. If there is, that'll be awesome. But if there isn't, then yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Go, Joey. Yeah, Joey has to pick up his wife. I mean, not Joey.
Just so you can get it.
Oh.
I'm not gonna
You're
pass this
leaving?
out today.
Oh, yeah.